It's another week of the Gabby Gordon Show. Friday, August 15th, 2025. Let's get it going. I'm your host, you guessed it, Gabby Gordon. Last week, if you tuned in, was really just a therapy session for me and Yankees fans. And of course, me being a Yankees fan, I needed to air some grievances, and we did that. I sat in the studio for 23 straight minutes, and I aired my grievances. And it's funny because I didn't even get through like half of what is causing me grief from the New York Yankees. I didn't even get through half of it. We could have gone for hours upon hours upon hours. And if I had someone else to talk to as well, I mean, we could have gone back and forth all day long about the struggles with this team. I will say this. They have given themselves a little bit more cushion in the wild card race now. They took 2 from the Twins. They weren't able to sweep. I would call it a relatively easy series. I think it's still a little concerning that they couldn't sweep the Twins, but they didn't. But it's still 2 extra wins, and it gives a little bit more cushion for the team. When you're talking about cushion, though, it's barely anything. They're up a half a game today against the Cleveland Guardians, who are on a 1-game win streak. And they're 1.5 games back of Boston for that second wild card spot. So they're treading very, very, very close on the brink of losing that spot. So they have to keep rolling forward. And sweeping the Twins would have been essential. It would have been beautiful if they swept the Twins. They would have been a full game up, but they couldn't get the job done. And the rest of their schedule, again, you can't sweep a team like the Twins. I don't really know where I see any other series sweeps at all, if any whatsoever. But the Mets are in a very similar position because they're only a half a game up on the Cincinnati Reds as well, and they lost again. They continue to lose in terrible fashion. Final score last night, 4-3 against the Atlanta Braves. They suffered another series loss. They fell to 2-13 over their last 15 games. That is brutal. 2-13 in the point of the season where you are trying to make a postseason push, and you have dropped 13 of your last 15. That is so far from what the Mets need to be doing right now. And again, they're just a half a game ahead of the Reds for the final wild card spot in the National League. And the Mets cannot hold on to leads. And we'll look at what went on this past week with the Mets. We'll go deep into their schedule. This is a New York baseball type of show today. We're not airing Yankees grievances or Mets grievances. We're really just looking at what these two franchises are doing right now, because New York baseball has been struggling. Maybe a silver lining for the Mets, some sort of joy. Pete Alonso broke the Mets franchise home run record. He passed Darryl Strawberry, and that was a really, really, really feel-good moment.
And Pete drives one to deep right center field, headed back toward the wall. It's out of here! Out of here! Pete Alonso stands alone! The polar bear on his own private iceberg. Pete Alonso, the most prolific home run hitter in New York Mets history.
That sound was courtesy of MLB.com, and for the record, I absolutely love that call. Absolutely love that call. Some people called it corny. Didn't love the polar bear's on his own iceberg. I think that's awesome. I think that is a great way to highlight how special Pete Alonso has been for the struggling Mets right now. And I'll tell you this. If that home run isn't an indication to the Mets that they must keep him forever, I don't know what will be. If the Mets let him walk away, if they let him walk and he doesn't retire in a Mets uniform, that will be one of the biggest failures that organization has ever made. You can tell he wants to be here. You can tell he cares about the city, he cares about the team, and he cares about his legacy. And he has forever etched himself into New York Mets history. He has the opportunity to opt out of his 2-year, $54 million deal, and considering how well he's done this year, he's probably going to do so. That'll probably be the case. The front office expects it. You look at his 2025 campaign, and he's continued to be one of the top power hitters in the MLB. It's not even close. He's hitting .264, 26 homers, 93 RBIs, and an .861 OPS. He also ranks 12th in homers, 3rd in RBIs, and 16th in OPS. For a team that has been struggling immensely, he is the guy who has kept it together and consistently done so. He's a good defensive first baseman as well. You can make some nice plays with him on your side. He makes those tricky plays seem easy sometimes. He picks up his teammates, and he's got such great energy. I mean, if you're a Mets fan or just the Mets organization in general, how can you not prioritize keeping him forever? It seemed like the shadows of Juan Soto were covering Pete Alonso at the beginning of this season. Like Soto was going to be the new franchise guy. Everyone's all the excitement, and I understand that, all the excitement around this massive deal, right? Almost $800 million worth of a deal for Soto. It was all the headlines in New York baseball coming into the season. The Mets had done something historic and incredible, and they were all in. They were all in. And nobody mentions Pete Alonso's name. It was all Juan Soto this, Juan Soto that. He is the king of New York, but now he's in a different borough. Now he's in a different part. And now he's a Met. And how special that is, and how special that was going to be. And now you see the conversations surrounding Soto, and the difference between that conversation and the conversation surrounding Pete Alonso. And it's like, who's the real king of the New York Mets? I think to me it's without a doubt Pete. You can argue Francisco Lindor as well. Francisco has been a great talent, but he has struggled as well. He has struggled. And Alonso's had his cold streaks. He's had his moments where he wasn't necessarily hitting the ball the way he needs to. Last season was shaky up and down. But they have got to lock him up. He has got to retire a Met, and he's on pace to be a Hall of Famer. And it's got to be in that organization. Because if they let him walk, I'm telling you, the anger that is going to come from Mets fans, especially if Soto doesn't figure things out, I do not want to be the management of New York if that's the case at all whatsoever. Steve Adams of MLB Trade Rumors, he recently predicted that the Mets might have to hand out a 4-year deal worth around $25 million annually. He also noted that a 5-year deal could also be possible, but either way, $100 million over 4 seasons or a 5-year deal seems more than fair, in my opinion, for a player of Alonso's caliber. And I don't think he's going to really accept anything less. And you saw what they gave to Soto. I know I keep mentioning him as the golden goose, really, but it's a great example. They gave Soto exactly what he wanted, having never stepped foot in a Mets uniform before. And they went after him. Granted, Soto's got the World Series win, and he's got a decorated career, and he's a young guy. But I don't think that they should be treating this Alonso contract very differently. Because he's as close to a captain of the New York Mets as you're going to get, besides Lindor. He's as close as you're going to get. And I just don't see a world in where the Mets can't make this happen. They've got the money to spend. I mean, you can't tell me they don't have the money to spend when they're shelling out close to $1 billion worth for a guy who played 1 season in New York with the Yankees. And it really shouldn't come as a surprise when he does eventually opt out of his 2-year deal, because he's going to. I'd be shocked if he doesn't, do so. Because when they signed him to that 2-year deal with an opt-out after the first season, the Mets were going into that likely assuming that he's going to decline after that first season, so it shouldn't come to them blindsidedly. If it remains uncertain if the front office views him as a $100 million player over 4 seasons, that's a different story. That's a different story. How do they view him is the real question. Is he a guy that should be making that amount of money in the eyes of the New York Mets front office? I think everything points to yes in what he's done. But until it's finalized, until pen goes to paper, anything can happen. Baseball is a business. It always has been, it always will be. Things have changed over the years, but now more than ever, baseball is a business. And if Alonso feels disrespected, I wouldn't be surprised if you see him elsewhere. So it's very important that New York locks him down. Because like I said in the beginning, it is going to be the biggest mistake that they will make. One of the biggest mistakes they could make if they let him walk. And they better not, because a lot of people won't be happy. Now, granted, I'm not saying that Alonso is like the savior, because it's clear even with him in the lineup, this team is struggling, like gravely struggling, to the point where they are burying themselves. And I completely intend that pun when I say that. They are burying themselves. They cannot hold a lead to save their life. Their length from their starters has haunted them. Their rotation has struggled like you wouldn't believe. I mean, on Wednesday, they blew a 6-run lead. They lost 11-6 against the Braves. And it's almost predictable at this point. You know, I turn the game on, or I see it on X and on social media, and people are showing the score of the game. Oh, the Mets are up 6-0, or whatever the score. The Mets are up 6 runs. And the predictions are, this lead's not lasting long. This lead's not lasting long. There is zero optimism from Mets fans. They are defeated on so many levels. I don't know if Mets fans, you have to at least know Frank the Tank, right? By now. This guy is struggling out here. If you look up Frank the Tank and you see this guy's videos or live streams during Mets games, especially on that Wednesday night game, it is unreal. I mean, it's pretty much what every single Mets fan is going through right now. Because the bats are doing half decent. I mean, you score 6 runs, that's a good day. It's not every game you score 6 runs in the MLB. And then they end up losing 11-6. It's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? They had a 95-minute delay to first pitch. It was raining. It wasn't nice out, right? You have a first inning leadoff double from Lindor, who's been doing pretty decent. A pair of walks from Soto. Soto has worked the count, but he's also been putting up some horrendous at-bats. So right now, you get a walk out of him. You consider yourself lucky. You had Soto walked, Nimmo walked. The bases were loaded for Alonso, and he ripped the ball off of Cookie Carrasco, who has since been demoted, I believe. We'll get into that as well. For a 2-run single. And then the knock from Alonso also increased his RBI total to 98. So Alonso, again, continuing to power through. Then they had a 3-0 lead moments later, when Nimmo scored on a sac fly from Cedric Mullins. And then the Braves went and challenged Nimmo's tag up, but they confirmed he left on time. And then they had further damage as Soto followed up on a 1-out single from Lindor with a towering 2-run homer to center that made the score 5-0. So you got a 5-0 lead. The offense is cooking on all levels. Even the guys who have been struggling are coming through. 29th home run on the year for Soto. That's a pretty solid year despite his late struggles. And then, just when you think Carrasco's night could be over, he proceeds to allow doubles to Nimmo and McNeil. And he didn't return for the 3rd inning. So that was a 6-run cushion for the Mets. A 6-run cushion. And if you're the Mets starter, David Peterson, coming into this game, you can't feel much better than that. You can't feel much better than having 6 runs to play with. Because even if you let up the solo homer, even if you let up 2 runs, even 3 runs, you're in pretty good shape right now. And he retired 6 of the first 7 batters. So, listen, everything's coming together. The Mets look great. They look put together. But then he struggled to maintain any sort of groove after that point. He escaped a bases-loaded jam in the 3rd, and then they tormented him in the 4th. They tormented him with a 5-run rally that included 4 walks and a 3-run double by Profar. Well, 4 walks, not really what you want for success purposes. I mean, you've got a lead, you got a 6-run lead, and then you walk 4 batters, you have to expect damage is about to be done. Because walks kill. And then the Mets pulled him at 80 pitches with a 2-run lead and 1 out. But somehow his ERA continued to rise while he watched from the dugout. And it doesn't get much worse than this at this point. Reed Garrett comes in for relief, and he gave up a full count RBI single to Marcell Ozuna that now the Mets are only up by 1 run. So the Mets come into the inning with a 6-run lead. A 6-run lead. And before you can blink, it's 6-5. But then, oh wait, there's more. With the bases loaded again, because they can't get out of an inning, Michael Harris II smacks a 2-out grand slam to dead center, and it is now 9-6 Braves, and at that point, the game's over. I'm sorry, the game's over. The 9-run implosion was the Mets' worst inning since April of 2019. And that happened in 2019 when they allowed 10 first-inning runs to the Phillies. And let me tell you, the boos were loud. The boos were loud at Citi Field. Because how much worse does it get when you got a 6-0 lead and you're now down 9-6 in what seemed like the blink of an eye? And you're home. I mean, those fans were shocked. I was shocked as a baseball fan. How does that happen? How does that happen? And honestly, you really can't blame the manager. You can't blame Mendoza because his pitching is horrendous. Peterson can't get out of it. Garrett can't get out of it. Last night, your pitcher couldn't get out of it. It's really rough in Queens. It is bad out there. And that's not even the first game where they blew a lead like that. That's the biggest lead they've blown since. But they've blown 4-run leads, 3-run leads, 5-run leads. They've blown leads for the last 2-3 weeks like it's nothing. They've almost forgotten that the point of baseball is to actually keep the lead and continue scoring runs. It's like they have it backwards, like it's golf or something. Like the lower number wins, and the higher number loses. I mean, that's what it looks like from an outsider's perspective, because it's almost predictable at this point that any Mets lead is not safe. Any Mets lead is going to turn to the other team, and that. When you're trying to enter the postseason and you're a half game up in the wild card spot and you're holding on to it by a thread and this is the product, that's bad. That's really, 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 really bad. I could try and bring some form of positivity to the Juan Soto situation because there's a lot of negativity around him as well. And he's supposed to be the savior of the Mets, especially with the amount of money that he came into this team with. And for. Because there's been conversation about his lack of hustle, about him not wanting to be there, and sometimes those rumors are squashed, and then when the Mets are on this type of decline, those rumors only increase. And there's been multiple times where fans are saying he has zero heart and he doesn't want to be there. And I'm not going to speak for anybody. I'm sure he is very grateful to be a New York Met and having the opportunity to play the game and make the amount of money he's making. Well, he did set a new Mets franchise record as well, in addition to Pete Alonso's franchise record. He stole base last night in the bottom of the 6th, and this was consecutive stolen base number 36 without getting caught by Mets players this season. So that's a new Mets franchise record. So I guess silver lining, right? Clap it up, clap it up. Congratulations, Soto. You made something happen. So, I mean, you got the Darryl Strawberry record broken. Now you got some base stealing record broken. But what does it really all mean? I mean, the Alonso one's huge. Props, of course. The Alonso one's great. And Strawberry was actually on the Michael Kay show and was very happy for Pete. So that was great to see as well. So that's really the only positive. You're looking at the last month of New York Mets baseball. I'll tell you, that's probably the only positive I can point out of the crowd. And then the Yankees. Oh, the Yankees continue to give me gray hair. It's just rough. Man, it's just rough. They go against the Twins. They win the first 2 games of the series. And they cannot sweep a team to save their lives. They can't sweep a team. They lose 4-1 on Wednesday. Yesterday they had a day off. They'll be entering a new series tonight. And things still look sloppy. Those 2 wins, very big for them. But things still look sloppy even despite the wins. And now they're going to play against the St. Louis Cardinals. And they're away. So they don't even have the home field advantage. The Cardinals are 61-61. And if we look at the standings here for the wild card, again, it's the same. The Blue Jays, the Tigers, the Astros all clinched the American League as of right now. And then you look at the 3 wild card spots. Seattle up 2.5 games. They're on a 2-game losing streak. Boston up 1.5. Lost their last game. And the Yankees lost their last game. Now, the Guardians won their last game. They're a half a game back. So if the Yankees cannot put something together against St. Louis, who, by the way, are 3.5 games back for the NL wildcard spot, if they somehow cannot put something together against St. Louis, they will fall out of that spot. If they get swept, they're no longer in the wildcard position. Unless somehow the Guardians completely implode. And the Yankees, what they've been putting together, it's simply not sustainable. It's not sustainable. Right? So you look at the Yankees, the rest of their schedule, and we looked at it last week as well. And I told you last week, flat out, I don't necessarily know where I see the bulk of the rest of these wins. Because if you can't sweep the Twins when you have to, I mean, those first 2 games in the series they won, it was pretty solid wins, 6-2 and 9-1, pretty dominant. The offense looked solid, and the pitching was pretty decent as well. Now you're starting a 3-game set against the Cardinals, a 2-game stint against the Rays. You got the Red Sox, the Nationals, the White Sox. And then you enter the month of September against the Astros, the Blue Jays, and then we don't need to look ahead right now after that point. Because those 2 series alone, the Astros and the Blue Jays, how many games do you realistically think that the Yankees can take? This season, the Yankees have not been good against the Blue Jays, and the Astros are notoriously known as a team that gives the Yankees a very hard time and has given the Yankees a very hard time this year. They lost 2 out of 3 against the Astros on the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th. They lost 5-3 and 7-1. The only game they beat against the Astros was on Old Timers Day, and if it's not bad luck enough, Mariano Rivera tore his Achilles on that day. He tore his Achilles. So if that's not a sign, I don't know what is. This team has struggled heavily. Now you lose Paul Goldschmidt. He's on the IL or potentially headed to the IL. We're not sure. He's nursing an injury of some sort. So what do the Yankees do now? I mean, what do they do now? What's interesting is that Goldschmidt was a St. Louis Cardinals superstar from 2019 to 2024. He was traded to the team in 2018, and he won 4 Gold Gloves and 5 Silver Slugger Awards and an NL MVP. And then he ultimately decided to leave the team. He signed with the Yankees last offseason on a 1-year, $12.5 million deal. And that signing, everybody was saying, oh, he's old, he's washed, his prime time is over. Since joining the team, he's continued a pretty impressive season offensively. But life is never easy. And on August 12th, he came down with a knee sprain, and he has not been in the lineup since. Now, his status for this series is still in question. He has not been put on the IL. Boone has hinted that he could spend some time on the IL, but he has expressed his feelings about the injury and the fact that they're returning to Busch Stadium. He said, quote, "I don't need any extra motivation to try to heal. I'll do everything I can. We want to go there and play well, and hopefully I'll get a chance to play there." That is courtesy of the New York Post. So let's theoretically say that Goldschmidt lands on the IL. Now you don't have your pretty much everyday first baseman. Yes, Rice has played some time there as well. I don't think Ben Rice should be playing first, but that's a whole other conversation that we can have another time. So let's say Goldschmidt lands on the IL. Well, what do you do next? To me, you really want to make a statement? If you're Brian Cashman, if you're the Yankees, you really want to make a statement that you're all in for the postseason. Call up Spencer Jones. What are we waiting for? Call the kid up and see if he can make a difference. See if he can light some fire under these players. Because they've been wasting him as a top prospect. And I get that he needed some development. He wasn't quite ready. But if Goldschmidt has a stint on the IL, however long it is, with the Yankees already struggling to the lengths that they have been struggling, why not weigh your options to make up for your first baseman? Goldschmidt is 37 years old to begin with, so how much time left on the Yankees does he even have? He was signed to a 1-year deal. That's a kind of toss-up, let's see how things go, we need a guy, let's see how this season works out type of deal. So there's no guarantee that he returns after this season anyway. So you want to naturally start to produce a first baseman. Ben Rice is not a first baseman. He's a catcher. I'm sorry, he's not a first baseman. All of those errors with Volpe, and yes, those are Anthony Volpe's errors. You have to reach first base. You're a major league shortstop. But all of those errors, one could argue, with a good first baseman, you save your shortstop from that error. Rice can't pick the ball at first. Goldschmidt gives you a better chance. So, to me, Rice is not a first baseman, shouldn't be there. Just shouldn't happen. Because utility man Ben Rice is going to go to first base. Wells is going to stay behind the plate. And that's not ideal because Wells has not been playing good baseball. He has been horrendous lately. And Jones has been having a breakout season in the minors. He's slashing .304, .380, .652 since being promoted to AAA, with a 1.032 OPS. The only hesitancy that I understand is that you don't want to rush him into a season that is quickly declining. You don't want to bring him into a scenario that is going to lower his confidence, that is going to set him up for failure. But I will play devil's advocate, as I love to do. If you consider this a failing season, so much so that you don't want to bring up a top prospect because you're afraid that he's entering a failing season, maybe it's time to bring up the top prospect to save your failing season. That's just a thought. Something's got to change. You're not going to snap your fingers and find a franchise guy that's going to change everything for you. It's not going to happen. You've already got your guy. It's Aaron Judge. He's your franchise guy. He's your captain. You're not going to find someone of his caliber that's going to turn around a season. So it's time to start doing the little things. Taking the gambles that you don't usually take. The Yankees are notorious for problems with player development. And most of the time, it's because they don't call these guys up when they should. And it has shown. Volpe, one of the top prospects they had, is struggling immensely at the major league level right now. A once gold glove shortstop, he cannot reach first to save his life. So what is the harm in bringing up another top stud prospect to try and fill a hole that you're dealing with right now? I know Spencer Jones isn't a first baseman. He's an outfielder. I understand that. But he's a tall, strong kid who can play the position, who can fill the hole. To me, better than Ben Rice can. And that's no disrespect to Ben Rice because he's not a first baseman. So to expect him to play there at the Major League Baseball level when he is a catcher first and foremost, it sets you up for failure. So even when the Yankees do develop players, they do it in the wrong way. I mean, they do it in the wrong way. They made a priority this trade deadline season of not touching Jones. And they made it very clear they would only trade him for one player, and that is Paul Skeens. So based on that, and I'm sure that there were many conversations surrounding what they possibly could have gotten if they got rid of Jones besides Paul Skeens. So based on the fact that he was untouchable, they clearly see him in that front office as a generational talent. And with the buzz that he generated during the trade deadline, other teams see that as well. So you may come up with the argument that it doesn't make sense to throw him in a panic-type season. But I disagree. I say let's shake things up. Let's prove that we mean business right now, that we got to turn things around. Let's have the team rally around a young kid with big dreams and make a difference. What's the harm in that? If he has zero pressure on his shoulders because he already knows that this team is struggling immensely and it cannot get much worse than what it has been in the last month and a half of baseball. If it can't get much worse, there's no pressure on the kid. Just go out there, play baseball, have some fun, and learn along the way, and maybe you will discover that he is an absolute hidden gem. Maybe, just maybe, it saves a season. You never know. But the Yankees don't do that. They don't change their philosophy. They don't change their ways. They do the same thing, and they get the same result, and it is becoming a problem. A big one. So, like I mentioned before, the Yankees will be opening up a series in St. Louis against the Cardinals. Luis Gil is on the mound to start tonight. And for the Mets, they open up a series against the Mariners. Sean Manaea on the mound. 4.33 ERA. Gil has a 7.27 ERA. So both pitchers looking to stay consistent, stay productive, hope the offense works behind you, give you some cushion. For the Mets, they just got to maintain the cushion because they're getting the runs. They just cannot sustain a lead. For the Yankees, sometimes it's the opposite. they can't hit to save their lives, and the pitching gets wasted. Both teams have struggled in the rotation aspect. Both teams have struggled in the bullpen department. Both teams have struggled offensively. So you got the Mets and the Yankees in a very, very similar situation, very similar scenario as the season winds down. And it is going to be the name of the rest of the season as to what these teams do in the next, I'd say, 2 or 3 series that they have. Every single game at this point needs to be seen as a must-win because you cannot put your foot off the gas. You cannot take your foot off the gas at all whatsoever, especially when you've got teams behind you only a half game back. And once you fall out of that wild card spot, it is very hard to get back in. Both teams holding on for dear life by a thread. The time is now. The time is now for New York baseball if they want any push at a postseason. Because both teams are very close to falling out of it completely. The Mets game is at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Yankees are at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So the evening will be filled with either success or disappointment. And you can bet I'll be watching both games. As a Yankee fan, and listen, I try and stay as non-biased as I possibly can on the podcast. As a Yankee fan, honestly, I feel for the Mets as well. Because the Mets and Yankees should come together at this point. We are both being dragged through the mud and the rain. And it's been terrible. But we're in it together because we're both going through it. They both have the same record, 64 and 57. It doesn't get much similar than what they've been putting together. It's not like we're on different planets or different icebergs, if you want to use that pun for Pete Alonso. They're on the same iceberg, and it's sinking. It is sinking fast. It's like the Titanic. It is going down, and someone's got to call for help. And these next 3 bulk of matchups for the Yankees and Mets, that's the help. You got to win as many as you can. You got to take at least 2 out of 3 in both of these series. If you don't, I call it a failure. Don't sink the iceberg. Or the ship, or whatever analogy you want to use. At this point, I don't even know. I really don't know. The analogy simply is New York baseball is dying, and it needs to be resuscitated. That's going to do it for today's episode of The Gabby Gordon Show. Listen, I can't help but notice that every episode seems so depressing with New York baseball right now, but we're in it together. We'll get through it, and it's not depressing, it's analysis. Just keep remembering we're analyzing New York baseball. We are not falling underneath the water with them. We got to watch from afar. We got to remember who we are. We're Yankees fans, we're Mets fans, whatever the case is. We're in it together, guys. We're in it together. And we'll get through it. We will certainly get through it, whether they make the playoffs or not. It's going to be an interesting rest of the season. So you may maybe take that as a silver lining, a little bit of a positive thing. It's going to be exciting because it's so narrow to get into that wild card, that final spot for both teams. So it's going to be exciting. Whether it's going to end positive or negative, that is still to be determined. And I would tell you probably by the end of this week, by the end of the following week, by the next podcast, we can make a pretty solid prediction as to whether or not these teams are getting in. So let you look forward to next Friday's episode of The Gabby Gordon Show. As always, same time, same place. Thank you so much for tuning in for the last 40 minutes or so of New York baseball talk. The NFL preseason is fully underway. That's exciting. Maybe we'll get some NFL talk in next week as well. A lot of information, a lot of different sports. It is a beautiful time to be a sports fan as all of it starts to heat up fast. Thanks again. My name is Gabby Gordon. Follow me on social media to stay up to date with the podcast and all other things that I am doing in the sports industry. My X account is Gabby Gordon on X. On Instagram, I am Gabby Gordon with 2 N's. And on TikTok, follow me there as well, because you'll see all of the New York Yankees crash outs after a loss or whatever the case is on TikTok. Follow me there, Gabby.Gordon with 2 N's at the end as well. Let's wrap it up. Don't forget, Same time, same place next week. And as always, stay awesome. Thanks for listening.